It felt like everything was falling into place. We were the perfect couple. At least that's how it seemed to everyone around us. We'd been together for 3 years, and in that time, it felt like we built an entire world together. The kind of world where everything just made sense. We had dreams, big dreams. We talked about the future all the time. Our wedding was supposed to be in a year, and we'd already picked out a venue. I remember one night, we even sat down and started planning where we'd live. I could picture it all: a little house in the suburbs, a garden in the backyard, and maybe a dog. We talked about kids too, names we liked, the kind of life we wanted to build. It was the kind of talk that made me feel like this was it. This was forever. He was everything I ever wanted: charming, funny, intelligent, supportive. We had our ups and downs, of course, but we worked through them, always coming out stronger on the other side. He had this way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. When he looked at me, it felt like nothing else mattered. It was the kind of love you see in movies, the kind you dream about. And I truly believed it. I believed it with every part of me. But even in the middle of all that perfection, there were these small moments that didn't quite fit. At first, I brushed them off. Silly things, nothing to worry about. His phone buzzing constantly when we were together. His late nights at work that seemed to stretch longer than usual. He'd become more distant, but it was easy to chalk it up to stress. Wedding planning, work pressure, life in general. There were even times when I'd notice him glance at his phone a little too quickly when I walked into the room, but I told myself, maybe it's nothing. Maybe I was just being paranoid, imagining things. He had always been so reliable, so dependable. He loved me, right? And I loved him. So I pushed the doubts to the back of my mind. After all, everything else was perfect. It wasn't anything huge at first, just small, insignificant changes. Little things that didn't add up, but when you're in love, you find ways to justify them. At least I did. His phone started to become a mystery. He was always on it, but when I walked into the room, he'd quickly lock it or shove it in his pocket. It wasn't like him. He'd always been open about his phone before, letting me borrow it without a second thought, showing me funny texts, or answering messages right in front of me. But now he was more guarded. If I asked him who it was, he'd say something vague like, just work, or nothing important. But his tone would shift just slightly, enough for me to notice. He didn't seem as open anymore, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being left out of something, like there was a part of his life he was keeping from me. Then there were the late nights. At first, I thought he was just working hard to make sure our wedding plans went smoothly, but soon it became a pattern. He'd come home later than usual, exhausted but distant. When I asked about his day, his responses felt rehearsed. Too quick, too generic. He'd say something about long meetings, or I had to help out with a last-minute project. Sometimes he'd even cancel plans with me last minute, citing work emergencies or needing some alone time. I started to feel like I was losing my place in his life. I remember one evening I was out with my best friend, Emma. We were sitting at a cafe chatting about life when she casually mentioned, "Hey, I don't want to sound like I'm overstepping, but is everything okay with you two? You've seemed a little off lately." She wasn't the type to bring up things like that unless she truly cared. I smiled, trying to brush it off. "Yeah, everything's fine," I said, but Emma wasn't convinced. She leaned in, her voice softer now. "I just get the feeling he's not as present as he used to be, like something's different. You know I've been around enough to see the signs, and I just want to make sure you're okay." I felt a lump form in my throat. Was she right? Could it be true? I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that I was overthinking it. I loved him, and he loved me. Relationships have ups and downs, right? Maybe it was just stress. The wedding was approaching. The pressure was building. So I shoved it down. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was reading too much into the small things. After all, I couldn't just jump to conclusions. It wasn't like me to assume the worst. But deep down, a voice was starting to whisper that something wasn't right, and it wouldn't go away. It all came crashing down one Saturday afternoon, a day I thought would be like any other. I had planned to go shopping for some last-minute wedding details, but I ended up at home, sitting in front of the TV, mindlessly scrolling through my phone. I don't even remember how it happened. One moment, I was zoning out, and the next, I was holding my fiancé's phone in my hands. He had left it on the kitchen counter, screen unlocked. At first, I told myself I shouldn't look, I shouldn't snoop. But curiosity crept in, and my hands almost moved on their own. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe just a hint, a sign that I was wrong about everything. But then, I saw it. A text message, opened, sitting there, as if waiting for me. The name at the top of the thread wasn't familiar. It wasn't someone I had ever heard him talk about. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. It's been too long. Let's make it special this time. I'm missing you." I felt my heart skip a beat. The world around me seemed to slow down, and the only thing I could focus on was that message. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My mind raced, but nothing made sense. My breath caught in my throat. I had to keep reading. My eyes flicked to the time, just a few hours ago. I couldn't believe it. He had been texting someone else. Not just anyone, someone he was meeting tonight. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, betrayal, confusion. It all hit me at once, and I could barely breathe through it. I thought we were happy. I thought we had everything. How could he do this to me? How could he betray the trust I had put in him? I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, to confront him right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, in shock. The numbness began to settle in, followed by a wave of sadness that washed over me. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my mind, questioning every single moment I thought we had shared. How long had this been going on? Were the late nights really work? Was the distance I felt between us all this time something more than just stress? Had I missed the signs all along? The questions were endless. I thought back to all the small moments I had ignored. His sudden coldness, his secretive behavior, the little lies. It was like a puzzle that had been right in front of me, and I had been too blind to see the picture. How had I let this happen? How had I been so naive? I couldn't even look at the phone anymore. The truth was right there, staring me in the face, but I didn't want to accept it. I felt foolish. I felt heartbroken. How could I not have seen it? How could I have trusted him so completely, only to be lied to, right under my nose? The man I had been planning a future with was someone I no longer recognized. I sat there for what felt like hours, the phone still in my hand, my mind racing. How do you even bring something like this up? How do you confront the person you thought you'd spend your life with when everything in your gut is telling you that everything is falling apart? I knew I couldn't just ignore it. I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen what I had seen. The evidence was staring me in the face, and I had to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. But the idea of confronting him, it was terrifying. What if he denied it? What if I was wrong? What if I was just making a mountain out of a molehill? The evening came, and he was acting normal, too normal. He was happy, relaxed, as if nothing was wrong. He didn't seem to have a care in the world, and there I was, about to lose mine. I tried to keep my cool, but my mind was screaming. I was on the edge, ready to explode, but I didn't know how to start. I finally said it, my voice trembling as I asked, "Whose name?" He looked at me, momentarily confused. His smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. "What are you talking about?" he asked, the calmness in his voice sending a chill down my spine. "What name?" I handed him the phone. His eyes widened for a split second, but he quickly masked it with a chuckle. "You're really looking through my messages now?" he said. trying to play it off like I had just done something wrong. You know you can't believe everything you see. But I wasn't having it. I felt my blood boil, my heart pounding. "Who is this?" I demanded again, the words barely escaping my lips. "You've been texting them for weeks. You've been lying to me." His demeanor changed in an instant. His face went blank and he started backpedaling. "It's not what you think. I swear it's nothing like that." My mind was spinning. His words didn't match the message I had seen. It was too smooth, too rehearsed. I could feel myself losing my grip on the situation, but I forced myself to stay calm. "So, what exactly is it then? What is this?" He hesitated for a moment, then put on a defensive tone. "You're just paranoid. This is all in your head. I don't know why you're making something out of nothing. I can't even have a normal conversation with a friend without you flipping out." It felt like a slap in the face. I could see the manipulation in his eyes, the way he was trying to turn this around on me. Suddenly, I felt small. Like maybe I was the one in the wrong. Maybe I was overreacting. I swallowed hard, but I knew I couldn't back down. "I'm not paranoid," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I saw the messages. I saw everything. You've been lying to me, and now you're telling me I'm crazy?" He stepped closer, his voice lowering in an attempt to calm me down, but it only made everything worse. "You need to trust me, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're the most important person in my life, but you're making something from nothing. There's no one else. It's just you, okay?" But it didn't feel like just me. Nothing about this felt like just me anymore. The words kept coming, smooth and convincing, and yet every part of me screamed that they were empty. He was trying to talk me out of what I knew to be true, but doubt started to creep in. Was I really overreacting? Was I seeing something that wasn't there? The internal battle raged. My heart said one thing: I know the truth. But the words he spoke, the calmness in his voice, made me question myself. Could I be wrong? Could I have misunderstood everything? I loved him. I didn't want to believe this. I didn't want to be the person who tore apart something beautiful over something I couldn't prove. But then I thought back to the message, the way the words hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought back to the feeling in my gut, the one that had never steered me wrong before. And suddenly, the doubt started to fade. This wasn't paranoia. This was betrayal. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay. After the confrontation, everything felt like it was hanging in the air, suspended between hope and heartbreak. I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to believe that it wasn't what I thought it was, that I was overreacting, that I had misunderstood something, that this was just a blip in an otherwise perfect relationship. But deep down, my gut was screaming that something was terribly wrong. He tried to act normal afterward, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the air between us had changed. It was like a shadow had fallen over our relationship, and no matter how hard we both tried to push it away, it was there, looming. His words were still smooth, his actions still kind in many ways, but everything felt hollow. He didn't seem to be the same person I had been with just weeks before. Where he used to be affectionate, now there were long silences. He stopped initiating conversations, and the once easy flow of our talks had turned awkward, like we were both walking on eggshells. His late nights at work turned into more frequent, "I'm too tired to hang out" excuses. He wasn't as present as he used to be. When we were together, it felt like he was somewhere else, like his mind was constantly drifting. And I couldn't help but feel that the distance was growing every day in ways both big and small. What hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the indifference that followed. It was like he was pretending nothing had happened, like the bombshell I had dropped didn't even matter, and that made me question everything. If he really loved me, how could he act like nothing was wrong? How could he brush off what we'd just gone through like it was nothing? The distance between us wasn't just physical, it was emotional. I would look at him and wonder if I was still the person he wanted to be with, if he was still the person I thought he was. I felt like I didn't even know who he was anymore. Was he the man I had loved, or was he someone I had never really known at all? It was like being on an emotional roller coaster. One minute I wanted to fight for us, fight for the life we had planned, for the love I thought we shared. I clung to that hope, to the memory of what we once had, and tried to ignore the nagging voice in my head that told me things would never be the same again. The next minute, I felt the sting of betrayal so sharply that it consumed me. How could he do this? How could he lie to me, hurt me, and still act like everything was fine? I found myself drowning in confusion. I didn't know if I should let go and walk away, or if I should fight for this relationship I thought we had. I kept telling myself that love was worth fighting for, that relationships went through tough times. But how could I fight for someone who had already betrayed my trust so deeply? Every time I looked at him, the love I had once felt for him was tangled up with so much anger, hurt, and resentment. It felt like my heart was in a constant tug of war between holding on and letting go. The worst part was the uncertainty. I couldn't see a way out. No matter what I did, I kept circling back to the same question. Was he worth saving? Was we worth saving? And every day, the pain of not knowing, of not being able to decide, gnawed at me. Some nights, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I should just let go, cut my losses, and move on. But then I'd think about the future we'd planned, the promises we'd made, and I'd wonder if that was enough to hold us together. I was torn between wanting to believe in the love we had and the harsh reality that maybe, just maybe, he had already given up on us. Torn between love and betrayal, confusion and certainty. It felt like I was drowning, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to swim to shore or let the tide take me wherever it wanted. It wasn't one single thing that made me decide, but rather a culmination of everything that had been building up inside me. There was another late night, another "I'm too tired" excuse, another text message I saw over his shoulder when he was getting out of the shower. This one was different, though. It wasn't just a vague, "can't wait to see you" kind of message. It was an intimate exchange, words I hadn't seen him share with me in a long time. It hit me all over again like a punch to the gut. This time, though, something inside me clicked. It was like the fog that had been clouding my mind for so long suddenly lifted. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even numb. I was just done. I had spent weeks questioning myself, making excuses for him, wondering if I was wrong. But in that moment, I knew the truth. The lies were too consistent. The distance was too wide. The way he had been treating me, it wasn't just a rough patch. This wasn't something we could work through. This wasn't something that could just be fixed. I couldn't keep living in this state of limbo. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when he had already made it clear that he wasn't invested in me the way I had invested in him. And that's when it hit me. I deserved better. I deserved to be loved fully and completely, not just when it was convenient for him. I deserved someone who would treat me with respect, someone who would make me feel like I mattered. Because at that moment, I realized that I didn't just want a relationship, I wanted a relationship with someone who actually cared, who actually valued me the way I valued them. The pain was still there. The betrayal still stung, but it wasn't enough to keep me in this toxic cycle anymore. I had spent too much time questioning myself, wondering if I was good enough, wondering if I was the problem, but I wasn't. I had given my heart to someone who didn't cherish it the way I deserved, and that was a hard pill to swallow. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew that I needed to do something. I wasn't going to stay in a relationship that was built on lies and deceit. I wasn't going to continue to live in this emotional roller coaster of doubt and pain. I didn't need someone who could gaslight me and make me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. I needed someone who could stand beside me, who would be honest with me, and who would be there for me in every way. The decision was clear. I wasn't going to wait around for him to change. I wasn't going to keep pretending that everything was okay. I was going to confront him one last time. I was going to tell him that I knew the truth, that I knew what had been happening, and that I couldn't keep ignoring it anymore. And as hard as it was, I knew it was time to walk away. No more second-guessing myself. No more living in the shadow of uncertainty. I had spent so much time trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix, trying to hold on to something that had already slipped away. It was time to let go. The clarity wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace start to settle in. I wasn't going to be the person who stayed in a relationship out of fear, out of comfort, or out of love that wasn't being returned. I was going to be the person who walked away with her head held high, knowing that I deserved more than the pain I had been carrying for so long. It wasn't going to be easy, and I didn't know how I was going to get through it. But I knew one thing for sure: I was done pretending. I was ready to face the truth and make the choice that would finally set me free. The decision was made, but actually going through with it was something else entirely. My heart hammered in my chest as I dialed his number, my hand shaking with each ring. I had spent days planning this moment in my mind, what I would say, how I would say it, but now that it was finally happening, all the words seemed to vanish. The only thing that remained was the deep pit of hurt in my stomach and the overwhelming urge to get the truth out, once and for all. I had everything I needed: screenshots of the messages, timestamps, his lies, his excuses. There was no denying it anymore. The evidence was clear. But despite all that, a part of me still wanted him to explain himself, maybe even apologize. Maybe we could work through it somehow. But I knew deep down that hope was just a last flicker before the fire went out. He picked up the phone on the third ring, his voice casual, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, what's up?" I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, listening to the sound of his voice, and I realized something in that moment. I had been listening to this voice for years, but now it felt foreign to me. It was just a mask, one that hid everything I had discovered beneath the surface. "Are you alone?" I asked, my voice a little shakier than I'd intended. There was a pause. "Yeah, why?" I could feel the tension building between us. "I know, name," I said, the words finally tumbling out, all the pain and anger rushing to the surface. "I know about the messages, the lies, everything. I know what's been going on behind my back." I could hear him freeze on the other end of the line, the change in his breathing instant. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his tone shifting from confusion to defensiveness. You're just blowing things out of proportion, okay? This isn't what you think it is." My heart felt like it was being squeezed. The gaslighting, the denial. It was all too familiar. He was still trying to play me like I didn't know the truth. But this time, I wasn't backing down. "I have screenshots. I have proof. Don't lie to me anymore," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "How long were you planning on keeping this from me? How long were you going to let me love you while you were doing this to me?" He was silent again, and then I heard him curse under his breath. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered, but the shakiness in his voice only made my anger burn brighter. "I made a mistake. I was stressed. No." I cut him off, the words coming out like a tidal wave, unstoppable. "Don't tell me it was a mistake. You knew what you were doing. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you did it anyway. You've been lying to me for who knows how long, and I've been sitting here, believing in you, believing in us. And for what?" I felt my chest tighten as the weight of it all hit me. The lies, the betrayal, the promises broken. It was too much to bear, and all I wanted was for him to admit it, admit what he had done. But instead, he only doubled down. "You don't get it," he said, his voice now angry, almost pleading. "You don't understand how hard things have been for me. You don't know what I've been going through." "I don't know what you've been going through?" I nearly screamed. "I was right here with you. I supported you. I loved you. And you were busy loving someone else behind my back. You don't get to manipulate me into thinking this is my fault, because it's not. You broke this, not me." I felt like I was finally standing in my power, no longer waiting for him to validate me or apologize. I had spent so long questioning myself, feeling small, but now I was done. I couldn't keep fighting for someone who didn't value me, someone who had already chosen someone else over me in every sense. "You don't get to have both worlds," I said, my voice now steady, no longer laced with uncertainty. "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You don't get to lie to me, hurt me, and then expect me to forgive you. I deserve better than that." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could feel the tension crackling between us, the finality in my words hanging in the air. He didn't say anything for what felt like an eternity, and when he finally spoke again, it wasn't the voice of the person I thought I knew. It was someone desperate, someone who had realized they were about to lose everything. "You can't just walk away from this. I love you. I need you," he pleaded, but it was too late. His words felt empty now, nothing more than the final echoes of a relationship already in ruins. "You don't get to tell me what I need anymore," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I need me. I need my dignity. I need my peace. And I need to move on from this. Goodbye." And with that, I hung up. The finality of it felt like a weight lifting off my chest. It hurt, yes. I was still grieving the loss of what I thought we had. But I knew in my heart that this was the moment I had needed. I had faced the truth head on, and I had walked away with my head held high, knowing that I was finally free. It was over. And somehow, for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The days after I ended things with him were some of the hardest I've ever had to face. It wasn't just about the loss of the relationship, but the loss of a person I thought I knew, someone I had built a future with in my mind. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the lies, the gaslighting, felt like a heavy anchor pulling me down. I spent the first few days in a fog. The pain was sharp and raw. There were moments when I found myself wanting to call him, to hear his voice, to see if maybe, just maybe, I could go back to the way things were. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't fix anything. The lies had already shattered the foundation of what we had, and there was no going back to that. But as the days passed, something started to change. Slowly, I began to realize that I wasn't just mourning the loss of him. I was mourning the loss of the version of myself who had stayed in that relationship for so long. The version of me who believed that love could fix everything, who kept second-guessing herself, who let her worth be determined by someone who didn't care enough to be honest. But then, I began to heal. Little by little, I started to find my strength again. I learned to value myself, to stand tall without needing someone else to validate me. I realized that I deserved more than half-hearted love, more than empty promises. I deserved someone who would see me as a priority, not an afterthought. And most importantly, I learned that I could give that love to myself. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I understood that this experience was a painful, yet necessary lesson. It taught me the importance of self-respect and boundaries. It taught me how to trust my instincts and not ignore the red flags, even when I wanted to. Most importantly, it showed me that no relationship is worth sacrificing your peace of mind, your self-worth, or your happiness. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but as time passed, I began to feel more like myself again. I wasn't just healing, I was growing. And while the scars from the past relationship would always be there, they no longer defined me. I was starting to feel whole again, starting to embrace the idea that I could move forward, stronger than before. It was a long and difficult journey, but with each passing day, I knew I was one step closer to finding the happiness and peace I deserved.